It requires a ton of pads.
Yeah,
and the fact that you need that much pads, I think signifies how dangerous it is, right?
Yeah. So what are some rule changes that we've seen? Goddamn cat. Hello and welcome to another episode of Millenniotic, the podcast where a couple millennials discuss society, entertainment, and the logistics of life. I'm Jason.
I'm AJ. And if you've missed any of our previous episodes, you can catch all the full episodes on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to like us on any of our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for additional clips for the Too Long Didn't Watch crowd and any other content you could please. Mm-hmm. Lots of good stuff everywhere, for sure.
It's true. And all of our clips are now just
on the social media.
Specifically social media, not on the YouTube channel.
Exactly. So give us a follow, give us a like.
What are we talking about today?
Man, so this is kind of a broad topic when you talk about sports safety. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk more about the professional leagues and what adjustments they've made to try to keep their games safe for future generations and how the game has evolved. Yeah. And mainly for the most part, when you think of violent sports in America, what do you think of?
I think of football.
Football is probably number one. I would say hockey's probably number two.
Probably boxing.
Boxing, right? Even though it's more of a dying sport, more niche.
Yeah, exactly.
Still very popular when it comes to athletes making money.
Yeah.
Very good if you're a boxer or an MMA fighter.
But I would absolutely say that our main topic today is probably going to be the NFL.
It's going to be
kind of
more
what surged this episode. We watched the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
It was a good time. It was actually a very good Super Bowl this year.
It was a decent,
in my opinion.
Decent Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Decent.
It
was unlucky.
Yeah.
For I would say most of us 49er fans, it was unlucky.
It's true. The first 3 minutes was a little sad to watch.
So, all in all, though, like the entire Super Bowl product was pretty decent.
That's what I mean. I enjoyed like the full experience all the way through.
Exactly. Yeah. I would agree. So, man, where do we start with this, right?
I don't even know.
Let me ask you a question first.
Shoot.
So when you think of safety in sports, what's the first thing, what's the first word that comes to your mind? What would you associate safety in sports?
Well, it begins with a C.
So you think of the C word?
I think of the C word.
Concussions?
Concussions,
So you think of concussions as the main priority for safety in sports.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
See, for me, when it comes to safety in sports, it's a matter of making sure the game is structured in a way that the baseline danger level of the game is at a low enough point that athletes aren't getting injured willy-nilly.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And for me, obviously, football is the biggest one when it comes to recent rule changes, equipment changes, all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have a list of most dangerous sports 1 to 5, in my opinion, for, I'd say, the 5 American major sports.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because obviously there's rugby, and there's cricket. There are actually more popular worldwide, but not in America.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if you created a list.
No, I did not, but I could probably think of some off the top of my head.
I'm going to go first then. So we're going to go from most safe to least safe, 1 through 5. So what I think is the most safe is number 1. What I think is the least safe is number 5.
Shoot.
So number 1, soccer. I think soccer is fairly safe, right?
Okay.
You're running around.
Yeah.
Although you do not have padding and there are some collisions, for the most part, I feel like injuries are fairly avoidable when it comes to major injuries. And what you think when you think of safety is concussions, right? So head injuries.
Yes.
I don't think soccer has that many head injuries compared to other sports. I could be wrong, though, because you're heading balls and you're jumping into the air.
I mean, you see those guys headbutting each other every once in a while, you know?
Yeah.
Throwing a headbutt into somebody's chest.
Zinedine Zidane in the World Cup, I think is what you're mentioning.
Yep.
Yeah, the headbutt heard around the world. So number 2 is baseball. I think baseball is fairly safe. You know, you are throwing a very hard object very fast
about like
to
90 miles per hour.
To a person who has only a helmet really has protection.
Yeah.
The rest of their body is fairly exposed. But I would say if you're a pitcher, you have some idea of where you want to throw the pitch. So I feel like that's pretty.
It's like how many balls do those guys throw a year? So it's just their precision's got to be on point.
The amount of like the percentage of hit by pitch compared to not hit by pitch is like 99.99%.
Exactly.
I'm sure
like these guys
like
are trained professionals. Is all I'm saying.
Exactly. So that's why I don't think it's too bad. Number 3 is basketball for me. Basketball has a lot of non-contact lower body, I'm going to say, injuries when it comes to landing on an ankle, spraining an ankle, jumping and tearing an ACL, trying to drive and you blow an Achilles, that kind of thing. That's more for what I think of safety when it comes to basketball. And they made a rule change recently because of a certain play. I'm going to get into it later point too. Number 4, hockey. I think hockey is a very fun sport to watch when it has a proper flow to it, but it's very dangerous.
Yes, it is,
because these people are running around on the hardest surface on ice, very fast, like 40 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, right? They're just flying.
It's true.
And then they're throwing their 200-pound bodies into people, into a board that really doesn't move much.
And they got razor blades on their feet.
By the way, they're running around with knives on their feet. Exactly. So every time I see somebody fall, I actually I tense up a little bit.
Yeah, you're like, is that guy's throat going to get slit accidentally?
I've seen like people leave the ice surface because they get cut or whatever. There was a goalie, I think, got slid into by a skater with their skate out and cut them right in their
Because I'm sure they sharpen their blades before every single game, too.
Exactly. And some blades are sharpened differently depending on the skater,
Yeah,
too.
exactly. It's true.
So, and then number 5 I have is football. Obviously, football. When you're making a tackle, it's like a car accident. It's car accident type forces that you're putting into each other. So I figured that, when it comes to the entire body... it's the most unsafe sport of mainstream American sports, I would say.
So I would kind of like rearrange that list a little bit. Maybe add one to the lower end of the spectrum. Like number 1, I believe it would probably be tennis.
You think tennis is pretty safe?
Yeah, I think tennis is pretty safe.
I would agree.
Because, you think about it, it's like the tennis balls as opposed to baseball. They're not going as fast. Like, they're running around and stuff like that, doing quick turns. So it's like you have the danger of the ACLs, but it's probably not nearly as bad.
And for the most part, they're not hitting the balls right at each other, so you don't have to worry about having to dodge it, right? Because, they're trying to hit it into a spot where they're not.
Yeah.
So for the most part, that wherever you're standing, they're going to hit it in a spot where you're not. So yeah, that would be more of a lower body concern. I can see a lot of hip issues.
Yes, exactly.
From tennis players.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I can definitely see that.
And I almost feel like I could see soccer higher than both baseball and basketball.
And I'm sure there's data to back that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It's just something about it. Could be more so just because like the field of play. Because it's like they're doing a lot of running around like basketball. It's almost more running.
It's way more running.
And it's on softer grass. Like slipping and stuff like that. You mentioned torn ACLs or just like anything that has to do with your legs.
Oh my God,
it's just like those quick turn movements on slippery grass. That's what I can picture.
You slip and you can tear a hamstring.
Yeah, exactly.
Like. When it comes to actual medical professionals ranking the major sports,
all right,
we have a doctor.
I feel like this is going to be
Dr. Chris
different.
Muller,
who
wrote something for Bleacher Report on the top 10 least to most safe, I guess you would say, sports in his medical opinion.
Okay.
So from least to most, we'll do least to most. So number 10, basketball. He doesn't think basketball is that bad.
Okay.
Number 9, X Games.
Yep.
Interesting how he added
I mean, you got skateboarding and everything. It's still
skateboarding, bikes.
Sports. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the most part, it's one of those things where if you're not comfortable trying to make a move, and if it's not physically possible or not, then I don't think people are going to be attempting it. And they are very trained. And for the most part, they're younger kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So they've been doing it.
They've been doing it they've been doing it since they were like 6 or 5.
Yeah.
Like people start skateboarding early.
Very early.
And I mean, even then it's just like you're young, you're flexible, your bones are still like they got their flexibility to them. So it's like
they
you
recover faster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's something about falling from midair that kind of allows you to brace yourself. There is a strategy to falling off of your skateboard.
There is. or falling in general.
Yeah.
So like if you had to jump off a second-story window, you would probably break legs, right?
Yeah.
But if you roll at the time of impact, the energy will actually just go straight through your body.
And I think that's like with you and me and the mentality of more so team sports is there's so many more variables when it comes to those as opposed to something like skateboarding where it's just you.
Right. You in a set environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Nothing's going to change in that environment at that time. Yeah. It's a very controlled environment. Most of the time, one at a time, right? So I would agree. But have you seen these people do super jumps in the super ramp?
Yes, I have.
Those people are psychos.
It's insane.
Those people are actually psychos. They're wearing a helmet and elbow pads, flying in the air 40 feet.
Like kick flips mixed with a 720. Like you're flipping your board. You are losing contact with your board mid-air, only to eventually grab it back while you're turning. Like
absolutely crazy. Like those are
the amount of just like object permanence that those people have. Just aware of their surroundings.
Oh my god.
It's nuts.
But at the same time, I feel like it's the opposite mentality they want. They want to like zone out. They want to like focus on what they need to do in order to land and not get hurt, right? So it's an interesting sport that they brought up. I used to watch the X Games all the time when I was younger, actually.
So hit me with number 8.
Skiing, snowboarding, and surfing.
Oh, yeah.
So, obviously, for the most part, it's on you if you get hurt, right? There's less variables. Although, I am deathly afraid of doing skiing or snowboarding because I feel like that's how I'll break my arm.
Yeah, my brother, he'll ride through, like, the back trails, through the trees and everything like that. And you think about that, you're going 35 miles per hour. If you go straight into a tree, holy crap,
that's gonna do a lot of damage.
And there are people who don't even wear helmets when they go skiing or snowboarding. Can you imagine that?
Some people do.
It's nuts. Like you can go downhill like at 55 miles per hour. It's not safe.
Catch an edge and you're
really
flipping
dangerous.
for how long?
Yes.
Who knows how long?
And especially those like opposite of skis where your boots are like attached via like plastic mechanisms. On snowboards, you're strapped onto that board. If
you're not letting go of the board.
Take a tumble, you're breaking your legs. It's like the most common sport to break a leg.
I totally would agree with that.
Yeah.
Number 7, NASCAR and motocross. I feel like that,
shouldn't even be included.
I feel like the range of things that can happen in that sport are so wide, and because of that, I guess like since there's probably less serious injuries and accidents coming from the vehicles, because for the most part, these vehicles have to be designed to deal with crashing.
Yeah, they have the rolling cages and everything.
Exactly,
like that. Yeah.
And then drivers are obviously trained.
Yeah.
And then the car is built so if your car flips, you can undo the steering wheel and you get out safely.
I just thought to compare that to the egg drop in middle school.
Right,
same thing, of course. Things so well that the egg won't crack, just so your skull won't crack.
Yeah, just throw it in a Nerf football and you're good, right?
Turn into jelly after a car accident.
Number, what are we on, 6?
Yeah.
They have soccer.
Okay.
Number 5 is hockey.
Yeah.
Number 4 is rugby, a sport that we don't often play in America, but I can see being somewhat dangerous. Have you seen some of the rugby players, though? They are massive.
They're big.
They are
dudes.
big athletic men and women playing this sport. They are crazy athletes. So I feel like, yes, it's...
And
you
rugby
don't really
doesn't
have
really play
padding.
With pads. Yeah,
right.
I was about to say.
You don't really have padding, but I feel like
they use their muscles for padding.
The object of the game, though, is not necessarily to get tackled and go as far as you can.
No.
There's a lot more teamwork when it comes to pitching and running and stuff.
Yes.
So I guess that's why you'd be considered less dangerous than our number 3 sport, football.
Okay.
Right?
Number 3.
Number 3 is football.
Ooh.
Number 2, MMA, because you're kicking people in the head.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
number 1 is boxing. You're punching
course.
people in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's literally just a contact. It's the definition of contact sport. When it comes
crazy
to MMA
people
and boxing.
doing boxing and MMA.
Yeah.
I've thought about joining like a boxing or an MMA gym just to get in shape because I feel like it'd be a really good way. And then if I ever need to, I can,
I suppose.
self-defend, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I would never want to do any sparring. I would never want to do any of that kind of actual fighting.
No, especially with
thanks.
some of the repercussions that we've been learning of most of these sports now.
Exactly.
I would never want to.
you said earlier that when you think of safety, you think of concussions.
Yes.
Now,
I think it's really just because of how big of a hot button issue it's become.
Concussion
over the past 20 years.
And a disease we'll talk about, CTE,
yes,
is a very big talking point nowadays when it comes to football especially, right? And all of the head injuries that players take over several years, and then all of a sudden, when they stop, their brain doesn't know how to react.
No.
So a lot of the, repercussions of all of these head hits ends up being mood changes and rage and depression, right? It's less about how much their head has been hit, but more about how their brain is rewired after getting hit all of the time.
It's true.
So before we get into concussion stats and what CTE is and what a concussion actually is, I want to share a story really quick about a beloved linebacker named Junior Seau.
Okay.
So Junior Seau was a Hall of Fame linebacker. He played 19 seasons in the NFL as a linebacker.
Yeah.
So for the Chargers, Dolphins, and then ended up at the Pats.
Okay.
So he played 19 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
All right. So most of his life has been playing football.
Yeah.
He retired. 4 years later, committed suicide by shooting himself in the chest.
It's insane, yeah.
So he killed himself at the age of 43.
It's a bummer.
43 years old. This is one of the greatest linebackers of the most recent generation, right? Yeah. So now why this is such a big issue is because when they researched his brain, they found that he had CTE.
Yes, he was diagnosed with CTE.
So his family sued the NFL for wrongful death. And that opened up this entire can of worms of all of these former NFL players whose careers were ended short because of concussions. And there's been other cases of NFL players after they retired committing suicide. There was another offensive lineman who actually shot himself in the chest and left a note saying, "Research my brain," because obviously this is messed up. So, so this is one really big topic nowadays for sure. And Junior Seau, you guys know that Kobe Bryant died recently.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
When Junior Seau died, it kind of sent the same kind of ripple through the NFL community as the Kobe Bryant thing did through the NBA.
Yeah, I can see
because it was so shortly after he retired. He wasn't even NFL Hall of Fame eligible yet. You need to be retired for 5 years.
It's true.
There were no traces of drugs and alcohol, by the way, in his system when he did this. So he was completely clear.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. But CT is just such it's such a depressing thing. When you think about it, because just concussions have been around for a while. Like concussions have, we've known about concussions for probably 80 years or something like that. I think it was when the first doctor really discovered the link between football and concussions. It wasn't until relatively recently, I think her name is Dr. Ann McKee, who started to really do a lot of research on CTE. And what CTE, it's called, it's chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy.
I know, it's encephalopathy.
CTE.
I'm just going to call it CTE. But the long form name is that. And really what it is it's a neurodegenerative disease. Very, very similar to, what's it called?
Dementia?
Dementia. What I was really thinking is,
Alzheimer's?
Alzheimer's, yes.
Okay.
So it's very similar to Alzheimer's. Specifically in the fact of how, it forms, where Alzheimer's is really a genetic disease, and they don't really know. They do know, I would assume. I didn't go into full-on research as to how it forms, but what they do know is it has to do with tau proteins. What tau proteins are, I'm very rusty on my proteomics, so you're gonna have to give me a break.
You already know more than I do. It's fine.
Exactly. Your neurons have axons. What they do is they connect and they send out transmissions. The main structure of those axons are thanks to microtubules. So any cell in your body, anything performs at its peak thanks to its structure. Basically, anything inside your body, it needs its structure. It needs those things to perform. What tau proteins do is they provide the stability to those microtubules that run all along those axons. So tau proteins, they connect to your microtubules. they create stability and structure for those axons.
So it's not really bad.
It's not bad.
Those
no,
aren't
tau
really
proteins,
bad.
They're fantastic. Everything in your body is there for a reason. It's only
I would like to think so, right?
It's only when things go wrong that cause cancer, diseases, and all that stuff, like all those like major diseases. So what happens is those tau proteins, whenever you have a traumatic brain injury, similar to concussion, any like major hit. Now, this is what happens over many of those injuries, is those tau proteins, they're going to disconnect from those tubules. These tau proteins, they have many phosphorylation sites. What phosphorylation does is it's basically like an activator. So when a protein is phosphorylated, when a phosphate group grabs it, it activates it. But when all those like phosphorylation like areas on the tau protein is available, they're getting overly activated to the point that they can't even connect to those microtubules anymore. Okay. So those microtubules that are linking your neurons together, promoting brain activity, are now degenerating, and they're losing their structure and eventually just fading into nothing.
So what you're saying is you have a bunch of wires in your head.
Yes.
And every time you take a hit, a wire disconnects.
Yes.
Okay.
And even worse, those tau proteins that are now no longer linked to anything, they are forming like a plaque in your brain that it's called like neurofibrillary tangles. So basically,
that's like the black spots
yes.
in your head when you get a X-ray or a CT scan for concussions, right?
Exactly.
That's what you'll see.
So that's pretty much what they are, and those are early indicators for people with Alzheimer's. It's also an indicator for people with CTE. Now, like I said, for people with CTE, it's just caused by consistent TBIs. So when that happens, that plaque is being formed. The people who are doing the research on CTE, they're finding those NFTs all over your brain. So basically in the frontal cortex, all over this place. And they say that it also is like forming around people's blood vessels. So you're getting less oxygen to your brain. And because of all that, like most stages or most symptoms of CTE, they're broken down into 3 different stages. So like people who have early onset CTE, they suffer from ADHD. They have chronic headaches. They suffer from illness. Then there's second stage, memory loss, social instability, which is just like not being able to interact with other people very well, and impulsive behavior. Like that's just a big one with like many people with like mental disorders. It could easily just be like, oh, this person has what's it called? Just like normal depression. CTE could easily just be like misdiagnosed as just normal depression. And before CTE, it was.
Yeah.
And third, dementia, movement disorders, tremors, depression, and suicidal thoughts.
Right.
Which is very sad because there was, similar to you, there was a similar case that I had found named a college athlete named Tyler Helsinki who played for Washington State University. He was a quarterback. Shortly after, I think, moving into college, he ended up going into the woods one day and committed suicide with an AR-15. And it was reported that because he was going to therapy, he was diagnosed with depression. He'd been playing since he was 14. And yes, he had numerous concussions listed. And however, on his laptop, I believe, this might not be true, but I feel like it's a very common occurrence when it comes to stuff like this and suicide, is he had looked up what is CTE on his laptop, and he had found out that CTE doesn't have a cure. Most of these brain disorders do not have cures. They have treatments. They don't have cures. And that's a very bleak thing to find out, is when you know that you have something and there is no cure and you already have those suicidal thoughts, and it just makes it worse.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That you're just like, there's what other way out is there? Researching this was a huge bummer for me.
It's a very, very sad topic.
It's so sad.
But this is one thing that all of the major sports are really, really leaning into. Yeah. They're really leaning into making sure that you're keeping your brain healthy before anything else. Yeah. And changing the structure and the rules and the equipment of the game to kind of make sure that these head injuries happen less and less.
Yeah. So with all these concussions, or all these like research that's been happening within the NFL, you'd think that they'd be trying to limit all of these like traumatic head injuries that are happening within the NFL.
Right.
You would think so. So we did a little research in the last, I think it's 8 years of the NFL of like reported concussion cases. And from these numbers, things haven't really changed that much.
All right, lay them on me.
So you got 2012, total injuries, preseason plus regular season.
Okay.
So I'm just going to list all of these. So 2012, 261 concussions in a year in a regular NFL season and preseason.
So there's 53 players to a team on an active roster.
Yeah.
That's like 4 teams worth of players getting concussed.
That's nuts.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, at least once over the entire year. And then the next year, it goes down. It's 229.
Progress.
2013, they made some progress. It keeps going. 206 in 2014.
Okay.
Then it goes back up again.
What?
To even more than 2012. 275. Yep.
What year was that?
1 sec, let me double check. 2015.
Okay, because that might be the year. Recently, the NFL made it so that they had to have had independent neurological consultants on each sideline, and if they see somebody who could have a symptom of a concussion, they're supposed to pull them out of the game.
So it's getting reported more. So the next year, 2016, goes back down, 243.
Okay.
Next year, 281.
Nice.
Yep. Then 2018, 214. Okay. And then our last year, 2019, 224.
So with 200 plus concussions every single year. Like, would you want your kid to play football?
Absolutely not.
No. I would not want my kid to play football.
Yeah.
I'd be skeptical about them playing hockey.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So, like...
I'm not even really like a football guy, and I didn't know about CTE until recently. And hearing about like all these cases of suicide, even with like people as young as 21, I wouldn't want my kids playing football.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's one big thing with our generation coming up is going to be what kind of choice do we do with our children when it comes to allowing them to play a certain sport?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's a lot of changes with younger football leagues where they're making them like flag football leagues until a certain age when your body's technically grown enough to it be able to handle the contact, because you could get concussions at early as like 6 or 7 years old, and it could just mess you up for the rest of your life. So I think the effort in trying to keep football relevant is going to be a tough task when it comes to our generation. But football is so popular nowadays, and the NFL is such a gigantic entity, I don't know how it'll die. Because I think there will still be people who are crazy enough to put their kids into football and have them play football, and then you'll still get all of these players going in.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a matter of making sure that the infrastructure for the next generation of football players is good enough to keep them safe so that after they retire, and by the way, the average length of an NFL career is like 3.5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
People aren't actually in the NFL for super long.
No.
So the Junior Seau case I was talking about earlier, when he was in for 19 years.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a long time for
That's
NFL.
a lot of hits. That's a lot of damage that guy took.
Yeah.
So even in the 3.5 years, you can still take plenty of damage.
Yeah. Because I remember it was like last year, I think it was on Sports Center, they were talking about how like with the eventual retirement of Coach Belichick and Tom Brady, that we'll eventually see a rise in MLB and Red Sox being much more popular than the Patriots on our channels and stuff like that. And it's like, no, football's huge. You're not gonna really stop it.
Yeah, football is to the point where it's too big to be controlled, and it's gonna take time.
Yeah, exactly.
And like viewership is still as strong as it ever been,
absolutely.
and growing with the impact of fantasy football for sure, right? Because that keeps people interested. I won my fantasy football league this year.
Oh snap! Congratulations!
Thanks. Yeah. Easiest $400 I've ever made.
Meanwhile, our friend lost a lot of money on those football squares.
The football squares rip. Never do a football square.
I know.
They never work. But it's with football. It doesn't matter what position you play.
Yeah.
because you will always put yourself in a vulnerable position by being on the playing field.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of the rule changes that they've made, and I have here, go into keeping the player safe, but I can't say that it's made the product better. And that's a lot of the concern nowadays for the NFL especially, is that the way the game is played nowadays is way different than it was 20 years ago for obvious reasons, for safety.
Yep.
But because they're enforcing all of these rule changes, and a lot of these rules are kind of up to the interpretation of the refs when it comes to hits to the head of a defenseless player and all these kind of things, it can screw up the flow of play and gives you a worse product on the field, even though it's safer. So I think that's the conundrum that the NFL is going to be fighting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be, how do we keep the game safe, but also good? I'm not super interested in the NFL. I'm kind of spoiled by being a Pats fan.
Yeah, it's true.
And literally growing up
Yep.
with the age of Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Leading my team for 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm just super spoiled.
Super spoiled.
Like, I honestly have no interest to watch any other game other than maybe the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And just because the Pats have been so good for so long, I associate myself as a Pats fan. As soon as they're bad again, I'm not going to watch them, though.
That's true.
I don't think I'm going to watch them.
I mean, it could be like the Red Sox, you know, where like you still watch them, like when they were bad before they had won the World Series. Everybody
for
still
86 years.
Everybody still watched them for 86 years.
Well, the thing about
hoping one day.
The thing about baseball, it's different than football, and it's because of the time of year it takes place.
Yeah.
So for the most part, during the summer, the only sport that's happening in America is baseball.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because basketball and hockey and football are all during the winter for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hockey makes sense. Football really doesn't, but who am I to say?
Yeah.
I love playing in 0 degree and snowing.
Of course.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Those Vikings must have a hell of a time, except
They
do
play
have
in
an
a dome.
They do play in a dome. Yeah.
But Green Bay, they don't play in a dome. They don't play in a dome. I'm going to talk about a little bit of the NFL and some of the major changes in the recent years for all of the major sports on how they're trying to keep their players safe and some of the major milestones, and just kind of discuss the changes and when they happened and how long it took for them to actually happen. Helmets were first required in the 1940s.
Oh my God.
The NFL just celebrated its 100th year.
Yeah, like it's been around since 1919.
So they've played 20 years of football without helmets.
Oh my!
And then when they had helmets, it was leather. It was the leather helmets, right?
Yeah.
So in 1950 is when the first polymer-based helmet. That's
okay.
It's a harder surface helmet, not as hard as the polycarbonate that they have now, but a much improved upgrade.
At least it took a little less time than 20 years to upgrade their helmets again.
It took them 5 years to put face masks on them.
Oh, okay.
So they had football helmets without face masks.
We're literally breaking people's jaws, probably.
One rule that I found hilarious. I don't know why I find it hilarious.
Why?
But it's called the Deacon Jones slap rule. So Deacon Jones was a defensive end. He was a beast, by the way. Very, very good player. But he did this thing where the ball would get hiked and he would smack the player in the helmet.
Fantastic.
He would actually smack the offensive lineman, stagger them, and then go after the quarterback.
Oh my God.
So in 1977, they had to make that illegal to slap people across the helmet.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I don't know. That seems a little late.
Yeah, a little late.
That's a little late. That's 50 years into your existence. You're a little late on that. But I thought that was funny. It's like, what do the 5 fingers say to the face, right? That's pretty much what he was doing every single play.
Pretty much.
Like, being an offensive lineman lining up across from Deacon Jones, like, you would have to figure out when he was going to try to slap you, because he wouldn't do it every time.
That's the strategy.
It's a mind game.
Yeah,
exactly. So in 2009, they made a wholesale of safety changes. So one is the blindside block. I feel like you shouldn't be able to just to randomly hit somebody from behind.
No, well, they're not expecting it, and
exactly.
they have to brace themselves, you know?
Exactly. Defenseless, the hit to the head of a defenseless receiver. Imagine being a wide receiver, going through the middle, and having a safety just go, oh my God, I'm going to kill this guy, right? Like, wide receivers are legitimately afraid to catch balls in the middle of the field because of the fact that they would get absolutely run over.
Oh my God.
So that was one thing that they've done, and it's been a very controversial rule because they've changed a lot with how you're supposed to use your helmet, and they're pretty much making sure you don't use your helmet at all, except for pretty much making sure you don't get a concussion by hitting your head on the ground.
Yeah.
That's their goal. They try to take away the hitting with the forehead. I saw a clip of Eric Dickerson. I believe he was in the 70s. He literally stuck his head down and ran over a dude by putting his head into the chest and just running him over.
Yep.
I'm like, nice, dude. That's how you break your neck.
Yeah.
But Eric Dickerson was a beast, too, by the way. More recently, chop blocks. Now, this was a big thing because a lot of defensive linemen felt vulnerable because the offensive linemen would go for the knees. They would try to block him at the knees and knock him down, but...
Sweep the leg!
But you're hitting their leg with a helmet.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much just saying, all right, let me take this very hard hit from a massive human being to the most vulnerable part of my leg.
Yeah.
So you can see how a lot of offensive and defensive linemen especially have a lot of knee problems after they retire.
When you bring up the point of how long is going to take before like things are going to start making it less interesting. So I'm not a football, I watch football. I watch I'll watch a game every now and again of the Pats, or I'll watch the Super Bowl of whoever's playing, but I don't know any of those rules. I know the basic rules of how to play. I know scrimmage. I know what passing, all that good stuff, but I don't know any of those rules. Now, an avid watcher of football knows all those rules. They know why a flag is being thrown for something. They know all those different things, and it's just, when is it going to get to the point where, and it already is, where any of those rules being broken is going to vastly change the outcome of the game if any of these happen. So when is it going to get to the point where just these flags are always going to get thrown or anything like that, and it's just somebody who's a casual watcher isn't able to watch because of how many rules there are?
That's me.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate how the NFL is played nowadays. And it's more or less just based on the fact that the base danger level of the sport is already kind of high.
It's high, yeah.
So what they're trying to do is lower it, but they're not going to be able to stop a lot of these collisions that are happening. So moving on from football to another sport.
Yeah.
Let's go to hockey.
I like hockey.
Hockey's a fun sport
Hockey's
to watch,
great.
right? It's a very dangerous sport.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of tough guys running around looking for opportunities to take the body sure.
I don't think that guy measured hockey close to football, but I would definitely put hockey close to football.
I would say so. It requires a ton of pads. And the fact that you need that much pads, I think signifies how dangerous it is, right? So for the NHL, some rule changes that they've made recently to help player safety. One that really surprised me was how long it took for the NHL to require helmets to be worn while they were playing.
How long did that take?
It took them about 50 years.
Oh my God.
So in 1979 to 1980, any player entering the league had to wear a helmet.
Yeah. My God. So it's just like somebody getting nailed into the board. They're going face first into it.
Think about it.
No padding.
There's players who probably just got into the league in the 78 season, right? Yeah. They didn't have to wear a helmet if they didn't want to.
Oh, of course.
So they could have been the dying breed of playing without a helmet for 15 years after this rule was implemented because they were grandfathered in.
Yeah.
I don't think people are that dumb to do it. I don't know. I'm sure there were, because hockey players are kind of crazy too.
I don't like wearing a helmet because it messes up my hair.
I guess if you got a good flow, I can't blame you, right? You hope your helmet is good enough. In 2013, they made a change to the icing, which was a rule for the international game for a while.
So you mentioned this already a little bit, but I wasn't quite understanding fully. So exactly, explain it to me a little bit more.
So the icing rule that they had before was the first to the puck after the puck crosses the goal line.
Yeah.
After being dumped in from behind the red line without any deflection, right?
Yeah.
So when icing is about to be called, it is either the defending team or the offense team,
and if
right?
the defense made it to it,
first,
the play would stop. And if
the face-off would come back to the other end.
Yes, and if the offense made it to that puck,
play would continue.
So it was a race.
So you could see that these players at full speed are colliding into each other, into the boards to try to get a puck for a dead
it was basically dead play. Whether your offense or defense, getting there first, somebody's going to get hit into that board. Even if the play was going to get stopped because defense was obviously going to get there, just regardless. He's still going to get hit.
I feel like it was more safety for the defensemen.
Yeah.
If anything, because the defensemen are, running not really, like, maybe they can hear the people behind them, but they don't, assume that they're going to get run over because they're trying to chase a puck and get to it first.
Yep.
So it avoids a lot of unnecessary collisions. I applaud the NHL. This was a good rule to add. And it was an international rule for a while.
Yeah.
So it's just something they implemented pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I find that I can, even with all these rule changes, I can still watch NHL any day and still enjoy myself. I love it.
Yeah, it's really like the flow of the game itself is pleasing for me to watch.
Yeah, because there's really not many stoppages when it comes to NHL versus NFL.
Right.
So it is a lot of movement all on one screen. You're just enjoying,
right.
It's fun
and
to
it's
watch.
actually 60 minutes of play. It's not 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. You actually get to track that puck as it's moving.
And I feel like that's also kind of why a sport like soccer is kind of popular.
Yeah.
Because there's always something going. The clock's always running, so the play is always going to be going. Whereas in baseball, you're waiting for the pitcher to throw the ball. In football, you're waiting for it to be snapped.
Yep.
All of these kind of things, right?
True.
In basketball, it's a little different because after they score, you can take your time to go back up.
Yeah, because they have the shot clock.
There can be a flow though for that game. And the flow in that game is really, really quick. So that's why I enjoy watching the NBA, even though a lot of people don't.
So
let's talk about the NBA really quick when it comes to rules that they've made to try to make their league safer.
Sure.
So in 2017, in the Western Conference Finals Game 1, the San Antonio Spurs are up 25 points. Kawhi Leonard, dribbling to his left, takes a corner three and rolls an ankle. Oh. Because Zaza Pachulia, who contested the shot, landed where he was supposed to land.
Oh,
so because of that, Kawhi rolled an ankle that he previously injured.
Wrong, yeah.
And because of that, he was out for the series. The Golden State Warriors, who they were playing, ended up winning that game after being down 25 points because Kawhi Leonard got hurt. Kawhi Leonard was the best player on the court, and it's probably one of the best players in the league now. And because of that, the Spurs, they were pissed because they were like, this is a dirty play by a dirty player.
Yep, and that's the whole reason why the other team won.
So in 2018, they added a rule allowing jump shooters space to be able to land to avoid these horrible ankle sprains that seem fairly avoidable.
Yeah, of course.
You jump up, you anticipate landing on the ground, not somebody's foot.
Yeah, so
and that's where the danger is.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you end up being in their airspace, it's called airspace. When they're shooting and coming down, it's a foul, even if you're not necessarily even touching them.
Okay.
So an example of somebody who takes advantage of this rule, for instance, is James Harden, where he'll take a million dribble step back three and then kind of lean forward with his legs into the defensive player's legs, getting that call for him.
Yeah.
Which is really not what it was meant.
No.
But it's a smart player taking advantage of a very shoddy rule.
I hate
in my
that
opinion.
so much. I hate that they can do that.
So that's one big one really recently that the NBA has done.
Yeah.
There's other ones, but a lot of the NBA nowadays is very touchy defense. You can't touch anybody. If you touch anybody, it's a foul. But see, I hate that.
That's why I don't like the NBA, is because it really is just always taking advantage of the rules. Like, you're always working for fouls.
It's manipulation of the referees, especially.
It's so bad. And that's why I can't enjoy it. Like, I watch NHL, I see somebody dive, and I'm just like, no, I can get out of my league.
What's funny is, in the NBA, I respect the officials more than the players.
Yeah.
Because the officials literally get bitched at for hours.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
For hours by every single person on every single sideline. They get bitched at.
Yeah, how dare you call my fake trip fake?
Yeah, how dare you call this foul when I totally ran him over? Like, what are you talking about? How is that a charge? And we'll talk about baseball really quick. Baseball didn't used to have ear protection for helmets.
Oh, yeah.
And way back in the day, you didn't even wear helmets.
Of course not.
So recently they added, you had to wear a certain type of helmet. They changed the...
So you don't take a 90-mile-per-hour fastball to the jaw.
And making sure you're not getting killed by this kind of stuff,
exactly.
right? So a lot of players now do have that face protector slot so that they don't have to wear, the full cage or whatever. but it'll protect their chin or their cheek from getting hit. So I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
And one thing that has been mentioned, I don't think it's really picked up yet, is that the pitchers wear helmets. And that's just because comebackers are very scary. But the thing is, when you're a pitcher wearing a helmet, it's a lot different because you would have to wear it more than a hitter would, in essence.
Yeah, that's true.
And if it's not comfortable,
because you're going to be wearing it the whole game.
Right, you're going to be wearing it for as long as you're on the mound.
Yeah,
so starting pitchers could wear it the entire game.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of making it not feel like an army helmet where it's like 12 pounds on top of your head, right? To give you protection.
Yeah.
But also making it safe enough to actually do something.
Yeah.
Because one thing that is always super scary is a pitcher getting hit by a comebacker.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
That's always a super scary situation.
Yeah, if it comes back straight towards them.
So that's a solution that players are trying to do, because for the most part, baseball is a fairly safe sport. There's some collisions when it comes to sliding into like second base to break up a double play. They recently changed that where you have to slide into the base, and that is because
people were probably taking out
they're taking out knees.
Stuff like that,
they're taking out knees. Dustin Pedroia pretty much has his career ended because Manny Machado slid into his knee 3 or 4 years ago, and he hasn't been able to play since.
Oh my God.
So it's very sad.
It's a damn shame.
It's very sad. But it's good to see that these leagues in general are changing rules to be safer for their players.
Yeah.
So I ask you, what sports would you let your kids play?
Oh my God. Yeah, it's just an issue.
After learning all about concussions and CTE and all of this data that we thrown at you.
I definitely wouldn't want my kids playing football.
No.
I mean, if I had to think about it, my reasoning for my kid playing any sport is a little selfish. I'd want them to play the sports just to give me an excuse to play those sports again.
Sure, why not?
Because it's like, well, what's one sport that both you and me play that obviously our kids would play? Golf.
Yeah, my kid would be a golfer.
That kid would absolutely be a golfer just to get me an excuse to get on the green every once in a while with them.
Exactly. And it's a great way to bond with them as they're growing up. And if you get them young, when they play in high school and they play in actual tournaments, they look good.
Yeah, they do.
I didn't look good when I played golf in high school, by the way.
No.
I was terrible.
Yeah,
I was a converted baseball player playing golf. It was not pretty.
Exactly. I'm like, I kind of wish I had started playing golf a lot younger.
Right. But I was too busy playing baseball and basketball at the time. So where was the time for my dad, who didn't even know how to play golf, really, to teach me how to play golf?
I did what most kids did when they were really young. I played soccer.
Yeah, exactly.
Like growing up. But probably another sport, same exact deal, is skiing. And now it's not necessarily like a team sport, but it has its social aspects to it.
Right.
You know, you have like kids in high school or anything like that. They have those ski trips. They go out on a bus. They have fun. They hang out. Like everybody's getting together. It's not a team thing, but it's a lot of fun. And it's great. I picked up really quick, and I feel that any kid related to me probably would pick up skiing pretty damn fast.
That's definitely one where it's good because you can get a bunch of people together that have an interest that they like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it can grow friendships for sure. And I think sports is a great way for you to grow friendships with people that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think you would be friends with in school, for instance.
Except when you're in that golf crew who's the one guy doing terrible and you're holding everyone back.
That was not me. My entire team was terrible, by the way.
Oh my God.
That wasn't me. So that was some information on how sports have really gone into more safety than, I would say, the product, where, we talked a lot about the NFL and how they're more concerned for player safety after their careers, as they really should, versus, making all of these rules to prevent players from doing certain acts, but in the meantime, they're tarnishing their product.
It's true.
So
I definitely learned a lot today.
I did too. And that's what it's about. You got to learn something every day.
Cue the shooting star that says, "The more you know."
The more you know. Exactly. Well. So next week, we're going to talk about pro gaming. And do you think you become a pro gamer?
No, not me.
Think again.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably unlikely. But we're going to talk about 4 different pro leagues.
Yeah.
And the kind of paths that each league takes, the viewership, their player base.
Yep. what it takes to become one of those pro gamers.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we're gonna talk all about different genres of games and stuff like that. Yeah. So should be some fun.
Yeah,
talks about some video games. Always down for that. So until then, let's get this bread.
Acquire that grain.
Till this week.
And have a great week.